Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. And listen, I can say the name of link to my sponsor. You can go to linqto.com. But what I can't say is one of the name of one of the private equities that's on the platform today. You're just going to have to go look for yourself. Very well-known company. My understanding is this thing's is in high demand, but for whatever reason, I'm not allowed to talk about it. So you go find out for yourself. Now, check this out. Get your tickets to XRP Las Vegas 2024. Look, we are on April 16th. Brad Combs told me the ticket prices are going up on April the 25th. The conference starts on May, is it the 1st? No, it's the 3rd, something like that. Where is it? It says it right there. May 3rd through 4th, 2024. So if you have been putting it off, you better go ahead and do it, because this is almost over, folks, and he's already set records. I know there are going to be a bunch of people there. He set a major record on this one. Okay, just in, another $1 billion worth of unbacked Tether, who the SEC has left alone, because I believe it's always been a government commissioned operation. The government's left alone has been printed out of thin air. $1 billion worth of Tether. And now Ripple is about to have their own stable coin. Does that mean they too are going to be able to print stable coins out of thin air? That's my understanding. Finally, we've got an honest Bitcoiner telling you that the Litecoin network doesn't work. And by the way, XRP has always been its own Lightning network.
As of today, there's only about $300 million worth of capital in Lightning. It's processing around $1 to $2 billion worth of transactions a year. That's very small relative to stablecoins. It's 10,000 times less. So Lightning hasn't succeeded as a mainline scaling solution for Bitcoin. It was the thrust of development for the last 6 or 7 years, but it hasn't succeeded in line with the expectations of the most of the Bitcoiners that were around back then, certainly including myself.
Well, not if you listen to Jack Mallers in his hoodie with no furniture in his house. He tries to act like Lightning Network is the greatest thing ever.
It's okay to acknowledge that it hasn't been as successful as other scaling solutions. That's fine. The question is, what do we do from here? Do we double down on Lightning for another 7 years? Or do we explore other scaling solutions? I'm certainly in the latter camp.
Okay. And then here's an interesting clip. Listen to what this guy says about the markets.
Look, I think it's a get out the popcorn movement. I think this is going to be a robust tech earnings season next few weeks. We view this more of a golden buying opportunity, and that's our view. This is not the time to run. It's actually the time to own the winners.
I think it still is going to be leaning in on digital assets and some of these alternative commodities out there in the market. We'll probably see gold continue to move up. In fact, its chart was continuing a green candle as of today. So it too also responding, much like when you start to see these kind of conflicts, and that is people are looking for flight to safety, which are typically moving out of securities and traditional fiat, even though some people will go to cash, in most cases like that. But going to be some interesting time.
Folks, make no mistake, we're in an election year. Even though things seem scary right now, this is how they do it, folks. This is how these crooked politicians do it. They pad the economy to make it look as healthy and as good as possible in these election years to get themselves reelected. Even the current administration, who from all indications is about as anti-business as it gets. Here's our old buddy Mike Novogratz on Squawk Box this morning, on Propaganda Box this morning.
In the context of being either a safe haven or a hedge against inflation or whatever you think the thesis is for Bitcoin, at a time where it has not held up in the midst of at what you would have thought would have been the moment that it would have.
Well, listen, you can always look with really myopic eyes at price action and try to read too much into it. The reality is Bitcoin is, started the year at 42,000 and we're at 62,000. So it's one of the best performing assets. Saturday, Iran attacks Israel. The only asset that's open is Bitcoin. People are very long risk assets in general, stocks, crypto, other things. And so the natural reaction is to go to the safe. And safe is still globally dollars and T-bills, right? You're seeing the dollar rally. The other bigger...
But isn't the dollar not supposed to be safe? Isn't the whole point of Bitcoin that the dollar is not safe?
Well, listen, in time it isn't, right? I mean, look what we're doing now. We're going to vote today to spend more money on wars, right? President Biden is slipping in more money around the Supreme Court to pay off student loans. We have...
Well, that may be, but the point is that it appears that when things are bad and people are scared, they buy dollars. So
when things are bad and people are scared, people with leverage want less leverage. And so they take where they have leverage and they sell it. It's why stocks are going to look at the NASDAQ chart. It does not look good, right? The NASDAQ's had an amazing...
But the whole point of Bitcoin, and we could roll tapes of you and I having conversations for the last 5 or 8 or more years about this, is that it's not supposed to be correlated. That's the whole point of this exercise.
Listen, there's not one asset in the world that is not correlated all the time, right? What happens is portfolios grow, and then a new piece of information comes up, and fund managers, retail accounts want to have less risk, not more risk. And when something has gone from 40 to 70, there's a lot of risk built into it. There's a lot of leverage built into it. And you can see it with the meme coin phenomena. You can see it with other cryptos. Lots of money pours in and animal spirits take over. And so you've got to wash out those animal spirits. It doesn't invalidate this overall thesis.
Okay, interesting stuff. And so is this. This is on the Hong Kong Bitcoin ETF.
Interesting, because ultimately this is the first spot Bitcoin and Ether ETF to be launched in Hong Kong.
What's the significance of these conditional approvals?
So what is interesting here is ultimately Hong Kong is trying to be the crypto or virtual asset hub of Asia Pacific. And what Hong Kong has done to differentiate themselves is they are allowing in-kind creation and redemption. And what this means is ultimately if you are a holder of Bitcoin or Ether, you can swap that into an ETF. In the US, they have only allowed cash creation and redemption. And what this means is ultimately you provide cash and in return you get a Bitcoin ETF. And so Hong Kong is taking a little bit of a different play where they're going to allow Bitcoin or Ether, physical transaction of in-kind creation. So if you're a holder of Bitcoin or Ether, you can then swap that into an ETF. And so this is a really significant event because ultimately it can attract different players, people that are already holding these virtual assets and cryptocurrencies. They can potentially swap into an ETF format if they want.
All righty. And then, look, I've been watching Ryan Celus, folks. This guy obviously knows something. The other day he tweeted this. Some of you weren't here for the COVID crash, and it shows crypto bull market is inevitable provided Biden doesn't execute a 6102. He's referring to Executive Order 6102, where they made owning gold illegal. They confiscated gold. He's making reference to that, I think, here in terms of Bitcoin, because later, a couple of days, 3 days later, he says, I do think it's more likely than not that governments conduct mass confiscation attempts on Bitcoin within the next 5 years. It will be done in the name of security. So, national security, that is, folks. This guy's an attorney. This guy isn't just saying this, folks. He's heard something. That's pretty interesting stuff there. All right, then we've got this one from ITM Trading on gold.
The next crisis that comes up, and we know there is one coming up because that's just the way it happens. We've had these bubbles build up over all this period of easy and accommodating money. So the next crisis is going to happen. Probably from some sector we're not really considering much, but it's going to happen. And when it does, the Fed's reaction is going to have to be what it did post-COVID, but many times more and much more quickly, to get the same effect from the markets, because the markets have grown tolerant of this monetary drug, this monetary adrenaline that the Fed keeps coming up with. So as we keep going through successive crises, the currency gets cheaper and cheaper. And I think that kind of seeps into the public consciousness. What we're seeing now, in other words, is a new environment for gold. We're going to see a shifting toward tangibles, toward commodities from financials. But most importantly, we're seeing these monetary trends over decades come to a head that I think signal a new era for gold, as we see currencies, not just the dollar, but fiat currencies around the world depreciated because of the enormous debt loads that had been built up over those decades.
Oh, wow. Stuart Alderati, yesterday in the Supreme Court, when pressed for limiting principle between a bribe and a gratuity, the government said, "Trust us not to prosecute cases unfairly." When told that the government's promise of good faith wasn't good enough, the question was repeated, where is the line? I said this, look, while they were trying to sell all these cartoon monkeys during the whole NFT craze, I said it over and over. Cartoon monkeys reminded me of, back in the .com boom, everybody would put .com on the end of their company that has no business plan, and they would get funding and go public and all of that. And in the end, the pets.com that had no business plan failed. Cartoon monkeys, to me, was always just the second iteration of that, because history always repeats itself. And that's why I said cartoonmonkeys.com. Now, there's a lot of talk about this, okay? XRP holders' big day today could be the end of the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit. And what they're talking about, this is from the SEC, or the court calendar, SEC versus Ripple Labs, final pretrial conference net burn is today at 2 p.m. Now, in DAIXRP.com, we're going to go a little further into this, and I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on this. We're also going to take a peek into the All the World's a Stage file. Oof, and boy is it a peek. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that here we go.